A very few, unfortunately. We have those that, when they want our vote, are there, and they'll be there come election time. We have Phil Gingrey, who's stayed on top of this now for 2.5 years, has introduced H.R. 1603 with the Fairness in Firearms Testing Act. He can't get anywhere, but he's hung in there, and so is Senator Chambliss here in Georgia, tried to do everything he can to get this moving in a direction where something's going to be done. The Oversight Committee in the House that oversees the ATF, Crime, Terrorism, and Homeland Security, rather fitting, is the ATF seems to be able to do all three.
The feather flock together, you know.
Well, they seem to be timid. They seem to be afraid of the ATF. The Miss Stucco, who gave me the same letter telling me that they are statutorily exempted from having to follow the laws that they're enforcing, told the Congress that she was seeking to induce voluntary compliance. She just testified the end of March, and then 4 days later sent me a letter stating that I was not allowed to call the ATF anymore. I'd lost my phone privileges, my fax privileges, and my email privileges because they are upset that I had submitted 30 different products since 2002, and I guess I had used up all my minutes, per se. I'm not quite sure that they have the authority to do that, but that's what they've told me. I'm not allowed to contact them anymore. So it's interesting. It's going to be a situation to see whether or not Congress comes to the rescue or not, but except for a very few voices, nobody's jumping to our aid.
Well, I can't say that I'm surprised. It appears that some of your rights have been violated more than just Second Amendment rights.
This is no longer a Second Amendment issue. This is a First Amendment issue. A federal law enforcement agency is now openly hostile with me. I sought redress to grievance. I pointed out something that I felt that they were doing wrong. I first brought it up with the ATF. They didn't like that idea, and then brought it up with members of Congress and tried to raise awareness so that we could rectify it. Now that agency, the BATFE, is openly hostile towards me, and the ATF has used the power of the United States government to deny me my property. This has cost me very conservatively, and just lost contracts alone, $450,000. We're approaching the $500,000 mark that this has cost me since last August. Members of that agency have used the color of authority, their badge, to exact revenge and punishment. There's been attempts to set me up, to entrap me. Certainly attempts to just rewrite history and say, you know, we're now going to reclassify this so that you can't sell this anymore so that we can cost you dollars and cents. To send a clear message to anybody else thinking of seeking redress to grievance with this particular agency. What I'm astounded by is that members of Congress have been watching this, and I know of other organizations that were also very close to members in Congress. I'll say their name, the NRA. These members of Congress wanted me to talk to these people. These people don't even take my calls.
Len, when you say these people, who are these people?
Specifically, the federal liaison of the NRA, Jason Wimay. He's been given copies of these letters and say, look, there you go. There's proof that even they can't discern the regulations. You know, we need your help in Congress to convey this. He won't take my phone calls anymore, and said that they're not interested in that. And I just can't help but get the feeling that because it's not their kind of firearm, or because it's not about sporting clays or hunting, and because it's about firearms technology and issues that are pretty dry for them, they're just not interested. And I was just dumbfounded, because the NRA is supposed to be, you know, fighting for gun rights, but it seems almost as if they're fighting to keep their foe alive, because it's become a symbiotic relationship where they both need the money. The ATF needs the NRA so that they can raise the drumbeat in Congress to raise their budget, and the NRA needs the ATF so that they can raise the drumbeat with their donations, and that each one kind of mutually needs the other one to survive. So that's my take on it.
Well, you're not alone. Other people have also told me the same thing. I guess the other fair question to ask from my perspective is, it appears that because you associated with Jews for the preservation of firearms ownership, that you have been even more abused by BATF. Is that a fair assumption, or am I pushing the envelope?
No, I'd say that's a pretty fair assumption. Only one time had the current chief of Firearms Technology Branch ever brought up your name. they've told me many times, how dare I express my opinion on your website, and that I was threatening them by speaking my opinion on various websites. And only once could they utter JPFO. They couldn't even say the full name. It seemed to really bother them to even speak it. So, yeah, they know it. They seem to be afraid to even speak your name, and I for the life of me, can't understand why, unless, of course, they're anti-Semitic in some way.
Well, they'll have to tell us that, won't they? Or they can deny it. What are the dangers you see to regular Americans, not just gun makers or gun owners, based on the experience you're now having and some of the changes now in interpretation and the way they're trying to manipulate the law and the regulations?
It's a very dangerous precedent. They've circumvented our system. New laws are supposed to go through Congress, be signed by the President, many checks and balances along the way. This dangerous reinterpretation, what's to keep them from reinterpreting other things or other, you got to wonder if other agencies within the government aren't watching with morbid curiosity to see if they actually get away with this. Why would you need to go through Congress and get a new law when you can just rewrite it and reinterpret it to suit your needs? It's extremely dangerous. And it doesn't just apply to gun makers or gun owners. Here's just a wild what if. You're walking in a grocery store. You walk in front of somebody pushing a cart, and a traffic cop who happens to be in the grocery store gives you a ticket for jaywalking. He says, well, I've reinterpreted the law. That's to prevent you from getting harmed, and you're not supposed to cross in front of traffic, and even though this isn't real traffic, since this was traffic and she had a load, I'm going to give you the ticket anyway because that's how I'm reinterpreting the law. Pretty scary stuff if that's a ridiculous example, but that's basically what the ATF is saying now. Even though that this is meant to be out in the street and with motor vehicles, I'm now going to apply this here because I'm allowed to. Nobody says that they're allowed to. I can't find anywhere in the law that states that they even have the authority to reclassify. It only says they have the power to classify. It doesn't say anything about doing it again, but, they just usurp that authority. They take it, and they figure, to quote them, they'll let the courts figure out whether or not they really have that authority.
Okay, well, Len, I want to thank you very much for being with us today. This has been Talking to America. I'm your host, Aaron Zellman. Our guest has been Len Savage. And remember, if you won't defend your rights, don't complain when you lose them.
Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of jpfo.org or its members. Talking to America is a production of jpfo.org.